Hey everyone, welcome back. Chelsea Williams here with Core Solutions Group. We are continuing discussions around the business side of law. So on this YouTube series, we bring law business owners who have been in business for themselves for over 10 years, because statistically speaking, that sets them in the top less than 10% of law firm owners. And we talk about things all the way from mindset to habits to budgeting and money. Sometimes we get into the triumphs and the client experience and just different areas of their law business that they have seen as important over their years to try and help our audience, whether you're a new law business owner, whether you're struggling, whether you're just trying to make it to that next phase. And they're here with a heart to give and share the information that contributes to their success in hopes that you'll take it and run with it and it'll be really useful. I am so excited about today's conversation. We have with us Carla Buterman with Davis and Buterman LLC. Carla has been in business for herself for about 13 years now. Carla, thank you so much for giving us your time and coming on the series today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Good, me too. All right, so let's give us an idea, tell us a little bit about your firm and what you guys have going on to start with.
Okay, well, to start with, I am an intellectual property lawyer. I'm a licensed patent attorney, but I also do commercial litigation and business law. With my partner, we specialize in a full corporate legal department. We do everything from your intellectual property to your securities to your business contracts and formation. So we're really a business-oriented practice.
Awesome. And I know we have a lot of viewers that are in the same practice areas, so I think this one will be especially useful. So today, the reason that I am so excited is because Carla is going to talk with us about habits. And if any of you guys have seen any of my other material or viewed and gone to one of our CLEs, we really appreciate the importance of habits, and so does Carla. And so I'm really excited to get this conversation started. Let's dive right in. Talk to us a little bit about, how habits have contributed, in your opinion, to the overall success of your firm and getting to this point, and even specifically what some of your habits are.
Sure. So I think that I live by the adage that you can't pour from an empty teapot. You have to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to have much less to give both your family and, most importantly, as a business owner, to your clients. You have to take care of yourself to be able to take the best care of your clients. And I think, especially in the law, where people are constantly under stress, constantly under a live or die kind of win or lose situation, if you're stressed out, you're going to burn out, and that's just kind of a recipe for disaster for your firm.
Yes.
So if you want, maybe we'll talk about some of my personal habits. I think personally, you need to take care of yourself physically by exercising, eating right. I know it sounds very cliche, but you have an immense amount of stress, both as a lawyer and a business owner. And you have to release that stress, or else it's going to build up inside. And once it builds up inside, you're on a road to burnout. And that is not good for anyone. And I think you also have to take care of yourself in your mental well-being, whatever that means for you, whether it's yoga, meditation, going to a comedy club and laughing, talking with a friend, whatever it can take to do something regularly for yourself to help your mental well-being. Because I think lawyers, they have high rates of addiction, high rates of suicide, and all of that is mental stress, which again leads to burnout. And I think that that is just a disaster for both you and your firm if you're starting out.
Yeah, and I know I can really appreciate how you say it really starts with your personal habits. Like, we're in the business of business. We own our own businesses. That's what we come on here to talk about. But to not talk about how personal, because there's really there's really not a huge separation between personal and business. Sometimes we'd like to think there is, but personal
Exactly.
absolutely overflows into business. And so I can really appreciate, that you prioritize personal habits first, because of that.
Yeah, I think, you have to take care of yourself personally. I think when you're a business owner, your clients know whether or not you're doing a good job, but they also know how you're doing it. And I think clients, when they see you and you're stressed out and you're anxious, that does not put on a lot of confidence
And it
for a
shows, they do see
client
it.
who's relying on you to take care of them. They want to feel secure in your hands. And to be able to do that, you have to feel good, because that confidence and that security that you're giving yourself through good personal habits translates to your clients.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
especially business owners, I think that when you own your own business, you have this, it's almost like an acquired assumption that you have to neglect yourself and sacrifice yourself for the sake of your business, for the sake of your employees, and for the sake of your clients. And I think it's this mental space that's easy to get stuck into, because there are even business gurus out there who say if you're not working around the clock, you don't want it bad enough. While that
Oh,
may
yeah.
work for some people, it's not a strategy that I subscribe to, because I, agree with you in a sense that you can't, it's true, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And to work around the clock and to grind so hard for something, but not be able to take care of yourself and enjoy the fruits of what you're building, to
Mhm.
me seems counterproductive.
You know, at some point, that whole grind and work 24 hours a day, I don't subscribe to that. I've never subscribed to that in my practice. I I subscribe, and this is, I guess, where we're talking a little bit about our business habits. I have defined time where I am working, and when I am done, I am done. And that has helped me put a boundary and a balance in my life that's so important. I think when you know and you have in your mind, okay, I'm at work every morning between 8:30 and 8:45. Every morning I'm here. And then when I leave in the evening, I'm done. I need to have time to take care of myself, take care of my family, and that allows me to have good motivation, that in the morning when I get there, I am working, I'm getting stuff done. And that's a habit I've had since I went into business. I think a lot of business owners, when they get into the I own my own business, I make my own hours. Yes and no. I've never had that mentality. I've had the mentality, yes, I own my own business and I make my own hours, but my hours are regular business hours. I'm going to show up every day at the same time. I'm going to try to leave every day at the same time. That doesn't always work, but I have those defined hours that I know what I need to do, and that helps me get what I need to get done. Because I think if you have too much flexibility, you sort of tend to put things off. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow. And that's also not good, because that leads to more stress, because you'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my gosh, I have this due. And that's not good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to point out that habits are built over time, right? Good and bad. And so
Mhm.
to even begin to create a habit at a scientific level, when a habit is, so I'm going to go science on you for a moment. Habits are
I love
stored in the
science.
basal ganglia, right? Me too. Okay, good. So we're in good company. So habits are stored in the basal ganglia, which is the centermost part of your brain. And what happens when a habit is stored there is it puts it in the basal ganglia, so it frees up the rest of the brain. So it's the brain's way of becoming efficient. And
Mhm.
not only good habits, but bad habits can be stored there too. And so to reverse those, I think science says around 21 to 30 days is when a habit can
Mhm.
effectively start to be created. And your brain, so when we tell each other, habits come from mindsets, right? They're built
Right.
from mindsets, they're rooted in mindsets. When we tell ourselves something over and over and over again, the brain accommodates that belief and begins to make neurological connections to make
Mhm.
that belief a reality, which produces the habit. And so I think it's important to speak on, if we're looking to change habits, it's important to acknowledge that it is only going to happen with repetition and over time. And it's not about perfection, right? It's about just choose the good habit, even just a little bit more than we choose the bad habits, right?
Right. The thing I would add to that is change one habit, change one thing. It's kind of like with New Year's resolutions. Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to lose 50 pounds and, be a swimsuit model this year. No, just choose one thing to do. And when you've mastered that one habit, pick another one. You're not going to get anywhere doing everything at once. You're just going to get frustrated, overwhelmed, and then you'll be done. But if you can just pick one habit, even if it's minor, even if it's just every day, I'm going to be to the office by 9 a.m. Every day, I'm going to take a walk at lunch. Every day, I'm going to do something that's meaningful. Give it a month, and then you can pick another habit. Because I think once you get on a roll, changing things, it comes easier.
Yeah.
But all at once is never going to work.
Yeah, that would probably create more stress than it solves.
Yeah, I think it acts as a deterrent because if you start to do something and then 2 weeks, 2 weeks later you're overwhelmed, you can't do everything at once, you're deterred. But if you just pick one thing and just try to stick with it for a few weeks, whatever that is, and look at what's most important for you, you can get somewhere. And small habits add up to big change.
Yeah, absolutely. So then share with us, if you will, what are some of the habits that you exercise in your business that contributes to the continuance and the new clients and the strategy? And within your business, what are your monthly, quarterly, maybe biannual, I don't know, habits that you follow?
So, like my daily habits, I take the train to work. So, when I'm on the train, I'm making a list, usually on my phone, of everything that I think I have to get done that day. Keep in mind that I've already had a list from the week before that I make on Friday for my next week with all my deadlines. So I'm a list kind of person. So for me, that habit of getting in and looking at what has to get done that day helps me focus on what's most important that day. In terms of growth, I'm always looking to network, and I try to network, whether it's taking a client out to lunch or meeting with someone, having coffee with someone. I try to do that at least once a month, that I'm meeting and engaging with somebody, not just on what can I do for you, but to get to know them. The law practice is it's business, but it's personal, especially when you're a small business owner. People aren't hiring a firm, they're hiring you. They want to know you, they want to know what kind of person you are. um, I've had a great fortune that I've been in business now 13 years. I still have clients that I had 13 years ago, and I haven't lost those clients because over the course of the time, I've worked on making that relationship. And I think that sometimes when you're in business, you're more focused on what I'm doing right now, and you're not maintaining the relationships over time. So that's a habit that I try to do monthly. Connect with somebody. I mean, obviously, you can't connect with everyone, but over time, connecting monthly with somebody will help you. I think my firm, we also try to have goals of getting new business, we want to pick up clients kind of steadily. And that again goes to networking the people you already know. Because I think especially as a smaller law firm, especially for people who are just starting out, the referral from somebody who knows you and who you've done work for is the best referral you can ever get. So again, it's about having that steady contact with your clients, even when you're not working on something for them. That's a great habit to have.
Yeah. And so I'm a list person too. I can, I'm an accountant at heart though. So we're, typically type. So I use Asana. Have you ever heard of the software Asana?
I don't know that I have.
So it's a really good task keeper to do. So if anybody is looking out there and maybe you're not a pen and paper person, right? So you don't want to make your list via pen and paper, or you don't really like, emailing it to yourself or whatever. Asana is another really good tool to keep track of to-dos and recurring items and things like that, such as making sure you're getting your monthly networking meeting in, which is how we met, by the way.
It is how we met.
In a lovely little coffee shop. So, and I can really appreciate the building the relationships with clients. We talk about sometimes, and I think I've got some content out there via video or something about the client experience and what that means and what it is from start all the way through what should never be a finish. Because a lot of times I think it's easy to say, okay, this matter is over. It's closed. See ya forever.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that it's very important that you see that as a lifelong relationship, because it's really it's the life of the client. It's the potential for them needing you again down the road, and being proactive about nurturing that relationship, even once the services have been completed and are done, I know is very important.
It is. I think that people, especially like I do a lot of litigation. Oh, the case is over, so now the matter is closed, so to speak. And it's really not closed. I mean, yeah, okay, that litigation is over, but that client will come back for other things if they feel they've gotten good service, and if you stay fresher in their mind. So maybe they used me for litigation, but then they'll come back a year or two later. Oh, well, now I need contracts redone, or can you help me with a trademark or something? And it's because you've nurtured the relationship over time. And I think it's important for new business owners to think like a client thinks. Do they want to do business with somebody they know? Do you want to do business with somebody you know? Yeah. And that nurturing over time. It's funny because I keep looking at my screen, because if you would see my computer screen right now, what you would see is the words plant seeds, nurture, and reap. And I have those in stickers across the bottom of my computer screen. I read them every day because I'm constantly in my head about planting seeds with people, nurturing them, and reaping the benefits. And I know it sounds cliche, but for me, it's like, okay, that's a gentle reminder every day. Did I do something to help my business? Did I do something to help me today?
Yes. I think a lot of this sounds cliche, honestly. I mean, you think about it, the habits, have good habits and take care of yourself. But the thing is, the proof is in the pudding. And between all of the guests that so graciously come on to this series, there are a lot of consistencies, and that's one of them. And to write that off as not being important, I think can be a big mistake. And so I'm really glad that, again, we're having this conversation and we're touching on all of these things. And like you said, it's almost like creating your own karma in business, not burning bridges, and always just reaching out and touching people, whether that's in the form of an email just to say hello, whether it's in the form of a newsletter. And I think referrals are great because referrals are they're pretty low cost, right? I mean, if you think about it, it's like the easiest way to get new business from people who are already happy with your services. I don't know if you've ever heard the term before, create raving fans. And it's part of the client experience. And if you do it right, for the right reasons. Because I think people can smell phony for the most part. But if you do it
Oh,
for the
I think
right
so.
reasons, you're creating kind of a professional karma. And to have people come to you who, because, people are a lot more quick to talk about a bad experience than they are a
Oh,
good
sure.
experience. But referrals are coming to you having heard about a good experience because of these seeds, like
Hmm.
you say, that you've planted and nurtured with, a past client. So,
I think it's definitely true. I get referrals. It's I think generally how my practice has grown over time. I think law firms, no one knows what a good lawyer is. Clients don't, even business owners, "Yeah, are you a good lawyer? I don't know. What's a good lawyer? What does one look like?" No one can answer that question. So to have that referral from somebody that says, "Yeah, you know what? She's done good work for me. I'm happy with her," is can really be a lifeline for your business. So if you can nurture those relationships, you have just given yourself a great gift.
yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head, though. What is a good lawyer? And a client may say, well, they did really good work for me. And so that goes back to you building the relationship and
Mhm.
understanding, what do you want out of this client? And client one might want a different result, or they have a different priority than client two. And so to be able to hear your clients, because this
Mhm.
is a relationship, and in a relationship, you listen, right? And you
Exactly.
listen to hear, not to respond and, put your on other people. So I think that probably plays into a lot of referrals, and really what makes a good outcome really is what it's about for the client.
And
So
I think it is. I think what's a good lawyer? Yeah. If you could have a definition, it's really somebody who takes care of their client. Um, and that means listening to them and having that relationship. And so if you can develop a good habit of developing a relationship with a client, even for clients who come to me with small matters initially, it's about developing that relationship early on that will allow them to feel connected enough to you to want to come back to you. So I think it's also about encouraging people not to think, well, you know what, maybe that client only has a small matter for me. Maybe they only need a contract reviewed. Maybe they only need something. So I'm not going to give them attention. I'm going to give them proportional attention to what I think they're going to pay me. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of firms make in not giving sufficient attention. I think that there's a wide array of clients out there who want to kind of test you out a little bit on something small to see what you do
yes.
before they hire you for something substantial. And I think that you have to be in the habit of being on the lookout for those opportunities and taking advantage of them. I think that that has helped my firm grow from the beginning, starting off with clients who even just want something small. And now it's blossomed into a very nice relationship. So I
Yeah,
encourage that a lot.
absolutely. All right. So if it's all right with you, let's shift gears just a little bit
Okay.
and answer the question of, what are some of the most, I'm going to say useful, because I know you've learned from them, but what are some of the most useful mistakes that you have made that you can share with us that have really impacted or changed the way that you operate your law business?
Useful mistakes. Um, I think the one I just referred to probably was a very useful mistake I made early on, and that was not appreciating small clients up front. I think that that's something, probably 13 years ago, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is going to be, oh, okay, I'm doing one small thing. And I think at that time, almost losing a client or actually losing a client. Hey there, little guy.
I got cookies.
Oh, I wish I was having a cookie. Um, was a kind of a a jolt to me. I think another useful mistake that I made was probably not prioritizing in the beginning work. That I think sometimes when you're doing work for somebody and you have a really big project and you have lots of little projects, you'll neglect one or the other. And I think I did that when I was early on, thinking only the big project mattered because that was going to be the big moneymaker project, and ignoring or putting off the littler projects that I had to do. That does not make for good client relations. When a client's waiting for something, they don't care. That's a big, I think that's probably a useful tip I have for you. Clients, they don't care if you're busy. They don't want to hear ever, I'm too busy for you. That means they're walking to someone else who they think will give them the time that they want. And I think early on, you get busy and you don't prioritize your clients equally. I mean, obviously, when you're a lawyer, you have big projects and you have to get them done, and you have little projects and you have to get them done. Clients don't want to hear excuses. They don't want to see late things. And I think one other very mistake you make is not always giving realistic deadlines. Your client says, I want this contract and I want it. Can you get it to me tomorrow? And you're like, oh, I need business. Yes, I'll get it to you tomorrow. There's no way you're getting it to them tomorrow. And now I would say to the client, you know what? I'm happy to do it for you. I can't get it to you tomorrow. How about Monday? And inevitably the client will say, yes, that's fine. But if you promise Thursday and you can't deliver it till Monday, all you have is an angry client waiting because you're not setting those realistic expectations for what you can do and for what they can expect.
Yeah. Wow. I have so much to say about that. So I have to be very picky choosy about what I say.
I'm getting a nerve.
But, man, I think, and what I'm hearing from you that I can definitely relate to is, you have to learn to say no sometimes, for your sake and for your client's sake. And knowing, predefining, kind of like you said, I know exactly how much time I want to spend in my business, and I know how much time I need to spend in these certain areas in order for my business to continue effectively. And to know in the same respect, what types of cases you can take on, how many, which ones you're willing to take on versus which ones you're going to end up over-promising and under-delivering on.
Yes.
And that is so frustrating to a client. And one of the number one complaints about lawyers, and it's just bizarre to me because it's one of the easiest things to fix, is lack of communication and lack of responsiveness.
That's true. That's the number one ARDC complaint against lawyers, is my lawyer doesn't talk to me. And there's no reason. You should never have a client that says, my attorney won't contact me. But I think that that's the biggest thing that attorneys can do, is establish expectations up front. Yes. Like I say to my clients, yes, you might call me today. I will call you within 24 hours. You may not get a call the same day. I mean, obviously, if your message to me is, Carla, this is an emergency, you're going to get a call back. But if it's, hey, I want to talk to you about a contract, okay, you may get a call today, you might get a call tomorrow. Establishing those expectations up front so that a client understands that what they're getting is the best thing you can do for maintaining that client relationship. Over-promising, under-delivering is a surefire way to lose a client.
Yeah. And I think, I don't think it's intentional most of the times. I think it's, you're really coming from a good place of, yes, absolutely, I can do that for you, client, and I want to do it for you, and my heart's in a good place. But like you said, you have to be realistic with yourself first before you can even be realistic with your clients, and setting those boundaries, and also not feeling like you have to respond right away. It's okay not to respond right away. And, as long as it's timely, I think.
Yeah, as long as you have, I mean, it can't wait. I would never wait a week to call a client back, but if they call me on Tuesday, they might get a call back Wednesday morning, or they might not get a call until Tuesday at 4:30 because that's the time I have to call them back. And that's okay as long as the client understands that you're not ignoring them, that when they send you an email, you're responding to them. And sometimes the response that they get from me is that's a great question, or I'd love to talk to you about that. Here's when I can do it. And it might be the next day. Communication with a client is so important just so that they don't think you're ignoring them.
Yeah.
No one wants to be ignored.
And even if it's, a matter that's drawn out and it takes a few weeks before there's an update, even sending a simple email that says, hey, Mrs. Client, just wanted to touch base with you. No new information, but just want to let you know we're still here. We're still working on your case. If you happen to have any questions or think of anything, please feel free to reach out to us. So even though you're not really providing an update or any,
Yep.
good news, bad news, nothing, just saying, hey, we're still here, just letting them hear from you proactively.
It's so true. Just allowing them to know that they're still on your mind, they're still on your page of things. It can mean a lot to a client. And like you said, even if it's that I don't have an update for you, or even if it's I'm still looking at the matter, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes I'm sure you experience this because I experienced it. You get some really left field questions that you're like, I was not prepared for that question. You know what? I have to do a little research. I have to sit and I tell my clients sometimes I just have to let it mull over in my head a little bit. And at some point, the answer will pop out. Sometimes at 3 in the morning, it'll come to me. But just give me a couple of days to mull over your situation. Don't panic. I'm coming back. And for the most part, that's a successful strategy for me.
And it's okay to not have a response right off the cuff, right? It's okay to say, you know what, I don't have an answer for you right now, but give me some time and I'll definitely get it to you.
Oh, for sure. I think a client would rather hear, you know what, let me think about it, let me research it and come back and get you a good answer rather than some off the cuff remark that you have to walk back because you weren't 100% correct.
Yes.
That does not inspire confidence.
Yep.
Saying I don't know is okay.
Yep. Absolutely. And, I can appreciate there are a lot of similarities between the tax and accounting world and the legal world when it comes to business and how our
Mhm.
businesses operate. And the most common complaint in the world of accounting and tax is the same exact complaint that lawyers are getting in terms of lack of communication. And so, like, just to provide an example, so in my company, what we have done is we have touch points on a weekly basis. So we meet with our clients once a month, but if there's something ongoing, because accounting is
Mhm.
one of those things that's really easy to forget about. It's really easy to put it on the back burner and push it off. And so, like, for example, one of the things that we do is if we request information or we're waiting on information, we send friendly weekly reminders every single week until we get what we're needing. We're in their inbox. And people are honest with us too. They're like, oh, it's so annoying, but I'm so glad you do it because I would never have gotten it to you otherwise. And so really facing our truths and building, it's almost like the rock is there. The water needs to go around the rock. So how are you going to flow around what is already there? And if people want communication, how can you put systems and processes in place to give them that in an efficient way?
Yeah, and I think we do something similar when we're in litigation. We do checkpoints because litigation can drag on for 18 months, 24 months. I've had cases go on for years. And the clients, they don't want to generally have a ton of communication with you about the litigation because they want to focus on their own business, but just touch pointing once a month. Hey, we had court. This is what happened. Here's this, here's that. and having that touch point and then being available for when they have their questions will go a long way. So I agree with you on the touch points. And especially, I'm in intellectual property. So I always try, trademarks take about a year. So I tell clients up front, okay, we're going to apply, but you might not get your trademark for a year. I do patents. Okay, we're going to apply today, but the PTO has an 18-month backlog before they're going to look at your stuff.
Yep.
So, but sending out, every, 60 to 120 days, hey, just still letting you know I haven't heard anything back so that the client knows, okay, I haven't missed anything. I'm not ignoring them. And I'm not, not sharing news with them. There's just nothing to share. So it makes the client feel a little more involved and secure.
Yes. And that's setting, like you said, setting the expectations. And, touch points the frequency might be different, like you said, depending on what type of matter it is. If it's going to take at least 18 months, they don't want to hear from you every week.
No, they don't.
Maybe once
a
month
is better
at
that point.
Yes, absolutely. So, all right. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Let's switch gears again. Now that we've talked about kind of some of the helpful or useful mistakes that you've made in your career, what are some of the triumphs? What are some of the moments where you were like, oh, I've figured this out, or, this is what needs to be done?
In terms of my business, I think probably one of the triumphs that I had was, and it was a slow realization to me, but I had a client who was my very first client, which I was very excited to get when I first started my practice. And I realized probably about 5 years after they were still my client, and now they've been my client for about 13 years, that this triumph of this relationship was that A, it's still ongoing, and B, that I have gotten more referrals from one client than from all my other clients put together. And I realized this probably about 2 years ago when I got another referral from this client and I think this triumph of this relationship showed me how to manage my client relationships going forward. I think it was, like I said, a slow realization that I had done something right by maintaining and nurturing this relationship. And it wasn't something that, it was like, oh my gosh, yeah, this client's still my client and they're still giving me business and referrals. And I think it caused me to go back and look at how I had managed that client over the course of years to know what I was doing right. Because I think a lot of times we look at what we're doing wrong, but I was able to go back and look at something that was right. I think another triumph that I've had is for a long time I was on my own. I was my own practice. And now about 18 months ish ago, I partnered with somebody, and it took me a long, long time to realize that partnership could equal growth. Because I think when you're in business and you're really self-reliant, it takes a great stretch to realize, at least it did for me, that partnership with somebody would help me grow my practice much quicker. And more steady because you had that support, and that having that support was a good thing. So I think those are probably my two big successes, although one might not look like what you would think as a success. Those are two things that I point to that I'm very proud of, because I think in this industry, it says a lot when you can have A, good partners, and B, clients that you've had for a very long time.
Yeah. And so I think that there's a habit there going back to habits, because, one of the things that I think is very valuable is the habit of reflecting. And like you said, it's good to reflect on what we've done wrong or not well and learn from it and implement it going forward. But I think a lot of times people overlook reflecting on what they did good, what they did right,
Mm-hmm.
what they did that produced, and really picking it apart and saying, well, how did I get this great result, and how can I take what created this great result and implement it into my daily, weekly, monthly habits of my firm, and in process, in the form of processes and procedures.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to reflect on something. And like I said, it didn't happen overnight. Like I just realized, oh, this client, 4, 5, 6 times a year, he's sending me clients constantly. And I thought, well, God, I've done something right. I have to really sit down and look at what I did, because, I do get steady referrals, but usually maybe it's one a year, maybe it's one every other year from a client, which I still think is a great referral stream. But then I had this one client that I had to look at and go, what did I do so right? And I picked it apart, and it took me a long time to pick apart what I did. And that's partly where some of my habits came from, is reflecting on what I did with this specific client and modeling myself after that for future clients.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you pointed out your most useful mistake was not giving the attention and paying the attention to the little
Mm-hmm.
people and such. And then your greatest strength that you've noticed was giving that attention. It's almost a twofold. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and it's that mistake that I've learned from and applied. I think I learned early on that that was a mistake, and then through this reflection, I'm like, okay, you know what? It might be a small client in the beginning, but that person might not just be a client for one thing. They might be satisfied with what I did, and then that becomes a referral stream for smaller matters too. And companies, especially when you're doing like business law, those companies are growing, they're changing. I mean, the company that I'm referring to that's been a client forever, they were started off, I would say small, medium, and now they're well and medium, large. They just keep growing. But because you have this relationship, it just gets better. Corporations, they're going to be changing. Companies are going to be changing, and establishing the relationships is just key. And that means, nurturing them. So,
Yes. And at the same token, in order to be successful over time, you as a law business owner have to be okay with evolving and changing too. I think
mm-hmm.
sometimes we feel that success is an ending point, right? Once you find it, you're there and
Yeah.
you're good. And we've said on this series before, just because you make it to 10 years in one day, something doesn't magically happen. It becomes easier. I think that what contributes to you top 10 percenters is that you are willing to pivot and move and be flexible and reflect and pivot based on what you noticed over your reflections, and continue and acknowledge that you should always be a student of your business, right? And open to learning from it and creating your future direction based on what you see.
I think it's true. The law practice, even since I've been a lawyer, it's changed. People's expectations have changed. Clients' expectations have changed. The practice has changed. And you have to be able to reflect and learn and move forward, because it's not going to be a stable environment. It's always changing, and you need to be able to learn how to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. All right. So is there anything else before we close? Is there anything else that you would, you want to add to our conversation, or just let people know?
You know what? I just think people just need to keep trying. Don't, the law practice can be tough. I know it was tough when I first started. And I think if you keep going and you keep trying, you'll have success.
Awesome. Thank you. And if people want to get a hold of you, if they have questions, how can they do that, Carla?
You can go to Davis and Buterman.com. That has our website. It has all our contact information on it. And they can get a hold of me either by phone or email. I'm happy to talk to people. I'm happy to answer questions or have coffee. That would meet my quota.
There you
So
go.
I'm always happy. Somebody says, hey, I saw your video and I'd love to have coffee with you. I'd love to do it.
And virtual coffee meetings count.
Virtual coffee meetings count.
They do. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me. I did too.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we've done it again. Thank you all for viewing, and watch out for the next one.
All righty.